You guys know, I'm already plotting out my travel calendar, and it's embarrassing because it's close, it's easy to get to, and it's just beautiful. 5 international destinations for next year.
One of the oldest cities in North America retains all of its historic charm.
It's got that sort of old world vibe that you might expect in Europe.
It's cold, it's icy, it's snowy. We spent a night in the ice hotel. The bed is basically like a giant block of ice. I think it's been described as a temple to agave. It's where tequila comes from. The bar that's been on the top 50 bars list. There are roaming mariachis there. Incredible food.
It's definitely a city you don't want to miss.
The bathhouse culture is really big. They're really in tune with wellness and the sun and the outdoors.
It's a multi-day hiking trail. I've never heard of anything quite like this before.
And this is a completely new experience. They're limiting it, highly limiting it to 45 hikers a day.
This is a place I've been, so I can actually say this is so good.
It's known as the Green Heart of Italy.
Incredible wine, incredible pasta.
They're really leaning into wellness, yoga classes, places to connect with the land.
The luxury high-end dining scene is really taking off. And a lot of critics really believe that the best pho in the world is to be had in.
What kind of getaway do you want to plan for 2026? Are you sipping coffee in centuries-old cobblestone squares? Watching ice canoe racers battling frozen rivers, or listening to live jazz music in candlelit cafes. Maybe you're sipping mezcal under desert stars while mariachi echoes through the streets. Whether you're up early to catch sunrise yoga, wandering through vineyard-covered hills, or slurping a big bowl of hot noodle soup just footsteps away from where the ingredients were grown, our best vacations are made of moments like these. In this episode of Traveling with AAA, we're continuing our journey through 2026's most compelling destinations. In part 1, we covered the most exciting domestic destinations for the year ahead. In part 2, we're venturing beyond our borders to discover international experiences that will stay with you long after you've returned home. So it's time to dust off your passport and start imagining your dream destinations for 2026. Hello, travelers. Welcome back to Traveling with AAA. I am your host, Angie Orth, and we are back with part 2 of our annual series about where to go the following year. I am here with my AAA cohorts, Jim Benning and Derrik Lang, and they are 2 guys with their finger on the pulse of where to go. You guys know, I'm already plotting out my travel calendar. I'm going to add some of these destinations because there are a few that I haven't thought of and I haven't been to. So let's get into our 5 international destinations for next year, starting with a place I actually have not been. And it's embarrassing because it's close, it's easy to get to, and it's just beautiful. Quebec City. Derrik, what am I missing in Quebec City and why should I go in 2026?
Yeah, same, Angie. I hadn't been. I'd been to Montreal a few times, and I just never was able to get over to Quebec City, which is a shame because it's very different than Montreal. But we wanted to put it on our list because it's very historic, and we've both recently been there in the past year, but we had very different experiences. I went in the fall, which is traditionally a very popular time to go to Quebec City, which is one of the oldest cities in North America.
And to put it in perspective, America is celebrating its 250th in 2026, and that's so exciting. Quebec City is 416. So it's got that sort of old world vibe that you might expect in Europe, right?
Old Quebec retains all of its historic charm. It's all kind of centered around this giant hotel, the Fairmont Chateau Frontenac, which is gorgeous. It kind of looks like the Beast's castle from Beauty and the Beast. And there's all kinds of great shops and dining, all very walkable in Old Quebec. But Jim went in the winter time and had a very different experience than I did.
Yeah, it's cold, it's icy, it's snowy. They really lean into that and celebrate that. They have an annual winter carnival that is, it's basically a massive party in town with parades, sports competitions. I was there in January with my daughter. One of the craziest things that we saw during the carnival was an ice canoe race. I didn't even know there was such a thing as ice canoe racing, but they did this on the St. Lawrence River. It ties into the long history of Quebec City and the way they would move goods back and forth across the river before, of course, roads and cars. We basically, like, spectators gather along the river in boats or along the shore and watch as numerous teams set out on the river in these boats, probably like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6-person teams. They have these like cleats on their shoes that they wear. And what they do is when they're in the water, they paddle as fast as they can, but inevitably they hit an iceberg in the river and they have to leap out of the canoe, grab the canoe and drag it across the ice. It's the craziest thing. Then they slide off back into the water and start rowing again. It was wild. It looks completely exhausting if you're one of the participants, but it was one of the funnest sporting events I think I have ever seen. So I would definitely check that out.
Yeah, they love events there. There's all kinds of festivals happening year round. A really big one for 2026, and part of the reason that we're suggesting that as a place to go, is the Quebec City Biennial. So this is a art explosion happening all over the city. So installations, sculptures, galleries participating. It's a biennial, of course, so it only happens every 2 years. So next year will be a really great chance to see that. But there's all kinds of events happening, like Quebec City is the home of Cirque du Soleil, and there is an acrobatic Cirque College there. So I was taking a bike ride one afternoon and I just saw like these acrobats just in the park, flipping around, standing on each other's shoulders. So from like the canoe racing that Jim was describing to the acrobats from Cirque, it's like an incredibly athletic city. Another destination that's part of Quebec City is Ile d'Orleans. It's this massive island across from the St. Lawrence River. And a lot of the produce and food that the Quebecers eat comes from that island. So they've got dairy farms over there, vineyards, distilleries. There's people even making wine over there. So that's a really great place to take a day trip and go on a foodie tour and just sample the bounty of produce and everything else that Orleans has to offer.
And I'm also hearing that Quebec City is a cruise port.
So people know it as a cruise destination in the fall, but what's interesting is now it's a year-round destination. So there's one ship that goes in the wintertime, and it's just a very different experience because much of the river is frozen over. What's cool about Quebec City is they're very conscious about how many cruisers are coming into port. So they do limit the amount as to not stress out the locals or the cruisers. So you do notice when the ships are docked, there is more people, especially in Old Quebec, but it's not too uncomfortable, which I think is like a smart thing for a port city to do. Another reason to visit Quebec City in 2026 is the opening of the Ngaro Cultural Center. This is from the Mohawk people that are part of the community there. They've done a really cool attraction, a nature walk, where there's stories and music. And so now they're gonna have their own cultural hub for art and live performances. It'll be indoors. So if it's colder, that'll be a nice option, but that'll be a really cool thing that's slated to open in 2026.
You mentioned the Fairmont, which is this majestic chateau that kind of anchors what you expect when you get to Quebec City. But are there any other places people could stay if that one's booked up?
Yeah, this city has such a reverence for history. One of the highlights and places that you can stay, it's called the Auberge Saint-Antoine. It's basically a hotel that's different buildings that have been connected. It was built by the Price family, who's a very important dynasty in Quebec City that goes back for generations. They own the Saint-Antoine, and when they started building it, they were excavating everything underneath the building. And so it's everything from old forks to like little teacups and pots, and that is the art throughout the hotel. So you'll look in these little like shadow boxes. Even in your room, you might have a piece of history that has been preserved and beautifully presented. So that's a great place to stay. And they're currently undergoing a renovation. They've purchased an old bank that was adjacent, and they're excavating that as well. And that's gonna have a spa, like more than 20 new rooms, a ballroom, and that'll be connected and it make the property even bigger than it already is. And that should be complete, if not next year in 2027, but you can stay there now. The construction isn't deterring the hotel operations.
There is one other new hotel that I think is worth mentioning, and that is the Ice Hotel. It's actually been there for a number of years, so it's not entirely new, but they actually reconstruct it every winter. And it's basically like a series of igloos that you can sleep in. When I was there with my daughter, we spent a night in the Ice Hotel. The bed is composed of basically like a giant block of ice. And they put, sleeping bags and other things down to keep you warm, at least warm-ish. The walls, of course, are all ice. But that is an amazing experience. It's definitely like one of those bucket list experiences to sleep in an ice hotel. There's also a bar in the Ice Hotel with glasses that are made out of ice. So I had a very cold hand while I was sipping a very delicious cocktail there. But, if I were going back to Quebec City, certainly making a first trip there in the winter, I would definitely stay at the Ice Hotel once.
Yeah, they love to say in Quebec City, there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothing options. And I imagine that was part of the experience in staying in the Ice Hotel, is that you had to bundle up.
Definitely bundle up, yes.
This is a AAA Travel Minute. I'm Kaylin Seigan, a AAA travel advisor. And here are some useful tips about new visa requirements that will help you make your next international trip go more smoothly. When planning a trip abroad, many of us totally forget about applying for our tourist visas. But overlooking that important detail could have disastrous consequences for a vacation. No one wants to be denied entry at a border. Visa requirements can vary widely among nations. While some countries allow U.S. travelers to purchase visas at the airport on arrival, others have far more involved processes. You may need to provide proof of income, pass a criminal background check, complete vaccinations, or jump through any number of other hoops before you're allowed access. AAA travel advisors recommend international travelers check visa and other entry requirements beginning 6 months before their departure, and periodically after that, because rules can change without warning. The U.S. State Department lists entry requirements by country on its website. And paid services like Rush My Passport can help make sense of more complicated rules, helping you to avoid red tape stress on the journey to your destination. This has been a AAA Travel Minute. Thanks for listening.
The next one on the list, this is warmer. Jim, you've spent a lot of time in Mexico. Tell me why Guadalajara made your list.
Yes, Guadalajara. Well, we talked in the domestic destinations episode about the FIFA World Cup. Of course, it's happening in cities across North America, and that includes Mexico, and that includes Guadalajara. It's hosting a number of games. A lot of cities that are host cities are really investing in their infrastructure. Guadalajara is absolutely doing the same, investing a ton of money into improved roadways, sidewalks, new bike lanes. Just one of the great benefits of a FIFA World Cup coming to your town is that you often see this kind of investment, but I think visitors are really going to appreciate that as well. Guadalajara is, as you may know, it's often regarded as the most Mexican city in Mexico. It's where that region in Jalisco there is where mariachi originated. It's where tequila comes from. It's where Mexico's charro culture originated. So if you really love like these kind of classic Mexican aspects of that culture, Guadalajara is a fantastic place to really embrace that. Incredible culinary scene in Guadalajara as well, I have to say. It's been hot for a while. There's the restaurant El Alcalde has been on the world's 50 best list in recent years, generating a ton of buzz. There's a bar, El Gallo Altanero. This is a bar that has also been on the top 50 bars list, making incredible craft cocktails. I think it's been described as a temple to agave. Agave, of course, is grown in Jalisco. It is the plant from which tequila and mezcal are made. So I will definitely be making a trip down there in 2026 to sample some of their cocktails.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Now, is there somewhere good to get cocktails and listen to mariachi? Sounds like that is the thing you have to do when you visit.
Yeah, there's a neighborhood that's out from the center called Tlaquepaque. It's a very cool place to go if you want to listen to live mariachi. There are roaming mariachis there. Incredible food. The torta ahogada comes from Guadalajara. It's translated as the drowned sandwich. It comes in a very spicy broth. It's like soaked in this broth. Really delicious. Birria, which it's kind of a craze these days. Birria comes from the same region, so it's a great place to go to enjoy some birria. So Tlaquepaque is a fantastic, while you're in Guadalajara, a great place to go. If you're really into mariachi, I would suggest checking out the International Mariachi and Charro Festival. That takes place down there every August and September. I actually spent a couple weeks there one year, sort of really embracing all things mariachi. The center of Guadalajara has a lot of gorgeous old buildings. They're really investing in kind of refreshing the old center before the FIFA World Cup. There's a theater there called the Degollado. It's an incredibly old theater. That's where a lot of the mariachi concerts take place. I highly recommend, if you're down there for the festival one year, seeing one of these incredible mariachi bands, which have 12 musicians. This just incredible orchestral sound coming from them, playing in that theater. It's kind of one of the classic things to do in Guadalajara.
That sounds fun and delicious. Let's go to number 3 on the list. And this is a place I've been, so I can actually say this is so good. And I love this pick. We're talking about Umbria in Italy. Derrik, what you got for us?
It's known as the green heart of Italy. So it's where a lot of agriculture happens and a lot of history. It's where St. Francis is from, but a lot of wine is made there. A lot of olive trees are there. So agritourism is huge in Umbria. And that's a big reason to go, in addition to some new properties coming online and really interesting places to stay in 2026.
The best food you can ever eat is the food that's grown within a few miles and then kind of dropped on your plate. There's just nothing better than that. So what are some of the things going on in 2026 that made this a pick for you?
Well, as you probably know from going there, there's not a lot of development that happens in Umbria, and that's part of the allure. It's one of these less crowded places to stay. So if you've been to Venice and Tuscany or Sicily, which everybody's been talking about, Umbria really gives a totally different vibe. I'm really excited about this new property that's opening in 2026, a Relais San Clemente. It's a former Benedictine convent in Perugia, which sounds so cool. I love staying in these old historic places that have been repurposed. They're really leaning into wellness. So they're going to be offering lots of yoga classes, places to connect with the land, and it's going to be a luxury property. So not only can you maybe go take a cooking class or go on a wine tasting, but you can also completely disconnect and connect with the land, with the beautiful Italian countryside.
And you kind of feel like you have the place to yourself at times. Is that right?
When we were talking about places to recommend in 2026, we did think about where are some places that people maybe haven't gone before that might be off the beaten path that you could connect to a bigger trip. Say you go to Rome, but then also add on Umbria just to get away from the crowds and again, to have that experience where you're completely disconnected and rejuvenating, which should be a big part about travel.
And there are a couple of festivals coming up next year. There's a jazz festival in Perugia and there's a Euro chocolate festival. What? That sounds great.
I know. These happen every year, and these are big draws. So there's the Jazz Festival, and then there's the Euro Chocolate Festival, which is one of the largest chocolate festivals in the world. So this draws a lot of visitors. But Umbria also has really hyper-local, small little festivals, too, in the towns throughout the region. So that might be a really great reason to plan a trip, either one of these big festivals or something smaller happening, too.
I have to say you had me at chocolate. I'm right
Yes.
there. Yeah, I mean, Italy, incredible wine, incredible pasta, so many fresh ingredients, but chocolate, come on, that sounds amazing.
The Perugina chocolate factory, I want to say, is in Perugia. I remember going there and taking a chocolate making class, and the chocolate, it's not the same. Like, it ruins chocolate for you because it's so good and it's so rich. That might be my favorite chocolate in the world.
Wow. What was your favorite experience when you went to Umbria?
Just kind of walking around the historic old towns, and, they're kind of built up like a hill, but a town with buildings all the way around it and cobblestones. And I don't know if you do an annual rewatch of Twilight like I do in the fall, but very much no, come on, no takers. That's so sad. But when they go meet with the Volturi vampires, it's very much like that in that old town. And you just know that a vampire and Edward Cullen is going to pop out and it's going to be a whole thing. That didn't happen, but it could. It's that vibe. Classic cinema. Okay, let's talk about Vietnam and Hanoi. Jim, what do you have for us?
What's interesting about Hanoi now is that there's a lot of money going into the luxury travel sector there. And among other things, some interesting new hotel openings coming. Fairmont has a new property that's opening, which sounds gorgeous with, I think it's like 8 restaurants. I'm sure that the dining at the Fairmont is going to be something to check out when you're in Hanoi. The Four Seasons is also opening a property in Hanoi. So 2 major luxury developments opening just in 2026 alone in Hanoi. So that's very exciting.
Southeast Asia is always thought of as a great place to go travel for a long time and be able to kind of stretch your budget, eat good food, stay at cool places. But I like that it's kind of growing into this luxury segment right as I am growing into the luxury segment. This is perfect.
I like it. Yeah. And so as you're growing into your luxury segment in Hanoi, you will also be happy to find, I think, some great infrastructure improvements because Hanoi is investing in new metro and rail lines in the area. It's making it much easier to get around. One of those new metro lines, in fact, covers a lot of the tourism hotspots. So definitely will make it easier for visitors to get around Hanoi in 2026. Another thing that we often associate with Vietnam and Hanoi is incredible street food. But what's also happening in Hanoi and elsewhere in Vietnam, but Hanoi in particular, is the development of high-end dining. Michelin has recognized a number of Hanoi restaurants lately. In 2025, Le Mai Garden was recognized with one of their Michelin Green Stars for its commitment to sustainability. Diners there stroll through a garden where a lot of the produce that goes into the restaurant is grown. Kind of the luxury high-end dining scene in Hanoi is really taking off. And of course, pho, which is kind of wildly popular everywhere these days, comes from Hanoi or the Hanoi region. We recently published a big story on kind of the origins of pho in Vietnam. And a lot of critics, including our writer, really believe that the best pho in the world is to be had in Hanoi and in the surrounding area. So if you love food and if you love Vietnamese food the way I do, Hanoi in particular will be a great place to visit in 2026.
Now, let's point our planes south and go down to Brisbane, Australia. It's been a minute since I've been to Vegas, as we call it in, the cool circles. So, Derrik, tell me about why you put Brisbane on the list for 2026.
Yeah, the main reason that we put Brisbane on the list is because it's easier than ever to go directly there from North America. Qantas, United, Delta, American all have direct flights now from places like San Francisco, LA, Dallas, Fort Worth. So yes, going to Australia takes a long time, as you know, Angie, since you've been there. But it's going to take a little less time if you want to bypass some of the bigger cities and go directly to Brisbane, which is totally different. Brisbane folks are really proud of something that is funny to me because it's something that you don't necessarily think that you would be proud of. And that's that they go to bed really early and they wake up really early. And so part of this culture is that they're really in tune with wellness and the sun and the outdoors. So there's lots of experiences in Brisbane where people are going on morning hikes or doing a yoga class and looking out at the sun as it comes up. There's several new bathhouses. The bathhouse culture is really big in Brisbane and the surrounding areas. There's 3 new ones that are set to open or have recently opened. And then you can't talk about the Brisbane area and not talk about the Great Barrier Reef.
The Whitsunday Islands, you can get there. Brisbane is such a good spot if you want to go to tropical North Queensland and see the rainforest. It's really, really a great base and so convenient that you can get there with so many direct flights now. There's nothing like a direct flight to Australia to kind of cut out some of that, the pain of going very, very far.
Another reason to go and why we put it on the list is the opening of the Ngaro track. This is in the Great Barrier Reef Heritage Park. And this is a completely new experience where you're experiencing the Great Barrier Reef not on or in the water, but on land. So the Ngaro owners have taken thousands of years of history and put it into this experience. And what I find very interesting is they're limiting it, highly, highly limiting it to 45 hikers a day. So people can really connect with the area. It won't be crowded. It won't be overrun. It'll be environmentally sound. So maybe you've been to the Great Barrier Reef before, like you have, Angie, or like me, I've never been there. Maybe you don't want to get into the water or see it from a totally different perspective. And this sounds like an incredible way to do it and something that I think people in Brisbane are really proud of.
And so this is a 20-mile track and it's a multi-day hiking trail. That sounds, I've never heard of anything quite like this before.
To me, it kind of sounds like doing the Inca Trail in Peru, where you have to really commit to it. I don't think it's going to be too strenuous, so it just depends on your physical capabilities, but definitely a new thing to add to the bucket list. Another Indigenous experience that's opening next year is the Kwanda Muka Performing Arts Cultural Center. This is on Stradbroke Island, and it's another place where you can see live performances, art, so really contextualizing the experience there with Native culture.
And when we go to Brisbane on our direct flight, where do we stay?
We've been talking a lot about new luxury properties. Brisbane has 2. There's the Intercontinental Brisbane, which opened earlier this year. That's right in the heart of downtown. Then there's going to be a Dorset Brisbane, so very, very fancy. And that's going to have beautiful views of the riverfront. So those are 2 new properties, very high end. So, you know, if you're going to go all the way down under, you might as well splurge and stay at a really luxurious property.
I'm not going to argue with that. That is excellent advice for my luxury era. And there are other places just outside of Brisbane too. I don't know if everybody knows, but that's Surfer's Paradise is close by, and Tambourine Mountain and the Gold Coast, all these kind of famous places that you would go if you made a trip to Brisbane.
That's why it's great that there's now these nonstop flights, because you can kind of center your trip in Brisbane and then, yeah, like you said, go out to the Gold Coast, go surfing, go on a Great Barrier Reef excursion, and come back to the city and experience the art and culture and some of the Indigenous history.
It's such a great outdoorsy place, but there's so much culture too. There's Indigenous culture and there's art, and there really is a ton. Brisbane is so metropolitan. It's definitely a city you don't want to miss in Australia, which can be really tricky because Australia is big and every destination is worth spending time in. So I definitely think it's one of those places that you probably should plan to go back more than once.
You know, Brisbane is the heart of Queensland, and it's actually going to host the Olympics in 2032 as well. So like these big sporting events like the World Cup that we've been discussing, the city is already preparing for that with new infrastructure projects, new businesses. So it's always good to think about those big events that are happening and how destinations are revitalizing their offerings.
You guys have given us a lot to chew on today. 10 destinations to think about adding to the list for 2026. Let's meet back here same time next year and we'll see how far I got through the list. How about that?
Yeah, and look, this list isn't about these places are better than any other places. They just have something new or interesting happening in 2026. So I think wherever you go, as long as you're experiencing the culture and immersing yourself, that's all good.
Jim Benning and Derrik Lang, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to our listeners for being with us. If you're planning a trip, be sure to connect with a AAA travel advisor. Check out AAA.com/travel or visit your local branch. This podcast is a production of Auto Club Enterprises. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. I'm Angie Orth. Thank you for traveling with AAA.